start with,
Yeah.
since he's the most important thing going on.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
Nobody warned me.
And so we do have to vote someone to take the minutes. Is there anyone interested in being the minute taker or you take it? Okay, cool. Do we vote or do we?
You appoint me.
I appoint you.
You
All
have
right.
power.
Thank you, Christine. For
thank you, Christine.
and then you might have seen the email from Stephanie, just trying to get the attendance from all the meetings and we're just trying to update that and get that off for the clerk's office.
Christine and I are working on the minutes from all of our previous meetings, so I've drafted them and Christine is editing for clarity and reality.
Mostly adding my notes.
And then we'll share them.
Working on those. So yeah, the first agenda item, I want to welcome State Rep Peter Samsic and Portsmouth resident. We have the letter from Adrian Adam, Mayor of Szolnok, Hungary, asking to reestablish a relationship. Peter, if we want to start with you, if you have any insight or.
I read this letter and apparently Eileen Foley did something in 1997, it says here, right?
Yep.
To create some kind of relationship. And when I had inquired about that relationship several years ago, maybe in 2005 or something, and at that time, nobody could give me any information about who was in touch with each other or not. And there wasn't anybody at the time. So, so at the time, I had suggested a different Hungarian town that might be interested because I have roots in a certain area of Hungary and one this town. So, and I go there maybe every 3 years or so. So, and they seemed interested, but then they never followed up on that. But I'm not, I'm surprised to see this and I'm glad to see it. I don't know if there are some type of motives behind it that we don't know about. Szolnok is connected to Viktor Orban, the prime minister. He used to live there. And back when I first suggested this in 2005 or so with the other town, Hungary was kind of in the more positive camp for most people, and not being used as a poster child for authoritarian kind of efforts. It was a more positive thing, and I was in touch with the Hungarian council in Boston, a well-known established lawyer in Boston, who had a consulate services in Boston for Hungarians. And he was doing a lot to get businesses interested in going to Hungary and investing. He sponsored cultural events and student exchanges and so forth. And so it's a very fruitful relationship. But he resigned from that post about 3 years ago, saying he could no longer represent the Hungarian government. And that in Boston, in fact, the educational institutions were not accepting students from Hungary. And nobody was inviting musicians from Hungary to come and play. They were pretty much blacklisted in Boston. And it had to do with their relationship to the European Union and their reputation, the prime minister's reputation. So there is no replacement for him at this point from what I know. But with personal conversations with him, he was just getting very frustrated trying to represent the Hungarian government's positions on a lot of things. That said, there's no harm in having some kind of city-to-city friendship relationships with Hungary or with this town in particular, except to say that, we should, if we do engage in something like this, we should be clear that there might be more motives behind it than we suspect. But that's always the case, whether it's Japan or Russia, for example, which is probably an even worse place now to heat up the relationship with. But as you may know, Viktor Orban is pretty much the single strongest supporter of Russia right now within the European Union. But Hungary is also a divided nation in some ways. And this particular town, I looked it up on Wikipedia. I don't know if you guys saw that, but so I am actually a dual citizen of Hungary and America because the consul in Boston managed to get process my application for dual citizenship when things were more optimistic. Okay. One of the things that happened is that the Viktor Orban's party, the Fidesz party, had overwhelming majorities. And in 2019, which is in the Wikipedia thing, there were municipal elections, and there were about 10 parties up for re-election, including the middle of the road conservative Fidesz party from Viktor Orban, as well as previous Communist Party, which now calls itself the Socialist Party, all the way to the right, the Jobbik Party, which is the neo-Nazi party. So there are about 10 parties, environmental parties, anti-corruption parties, all kinds of stuff. So in the past two national elections, I voted in both of those, not for Viktor Orban's party, but for somebody else, a better party. In fact, a party that's initials are LMP, which in Hungarian is politics can be different. Okay, but anyway, but in 2019, these parties decided that there's no way that they can defeat the majorities of the Fidesz. So the only way they have any chance of being heard and having a stronger presence is for them to group together to form a big coalition of parties. So in 2019, that's what they did. They got together a whole range of parties, like 6 parties of the higher percentage parties. And in all throughout Hungary's municipal elections, they ran one candidate supporting this coalition. And lo and behold, the top 10 largest population cities in Hungary, in all those cities, the opposition won the majority, this coalition.
Mhm.
And Szolnok is no different. According to Wikipedia, of the 18 municipal elected councillors, 10 are opposition party coalition and 8 is Fidesz. The mayor himself is a Fidesz party mayor, but he doesn't have a majority on his city council. So because of that. And incidentally, that also includes Budapest, which is also under the control of a opposition mayor right now. And one of the friction points recently because of Ukraine has been that while Budapest and its residents, which has about 2 million residents, I believe, why they supported and helped Ukrainian refugees, the Hungarian central government was not too cooperative. So there's been that divide there too. So anyway, so that's just to lay out the landscape here for you. But I think, if we can find ways of cooperating somehow, and I was mentioning to Rich just a minute ago that I don't know if any of you were familiar with a new Gary Kish. Is that a name that rings a bell? So Gary Kish is a Hungarian guy. He's an orthopedic surgeon. He's retired now.
Gary Kish?
Kish,
Yeah, I know Gary Kish. Right?
okay, so Gary Kish. So Gary, as an orthopedic surgeon, was very aware that Katalina Karikó, the Nobel Prize winning researcher on vaccines, was born in Szolnok. And so Gary had reached out to Daeglen to say, hey, I know for a fact that you were friends with Karikó's daughter, but she was also a rower. So they had become acquainted in the rowing competition. I believe she won the competition, be on the team, and he lost, if I remember this correctly. Anyway, they knew each other. So Gary said, why not ask the daughter if she could make some arrangements for us to invite her as a guest to Portsmouth, maybe to give a lecture on vaccines, which she developed the COVID vaccine particularly. And it seemed like a great idea, and I think Gary did reach out to Deglin. This was maybe 6 months ago or so, and or maybe longer, and I never heard what happened with that. But I thought that was a pretty good idea. And since we have that connection to Solnook, especially now since the mayor has reached out to us, it seems to me that might be a good one to pick up that lead, unless we have some other suggestions. But, I'm not averse at supporting relationships with them at all. If we can find some common ground, and we know that there might be some agendas that we're not familiar with, we don't have to get into those things, we can avoid those. So I'm glad to see it's happening.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, our concept was to write back and say, thanks for this opening. Did you have some things in mind?
Right.
Culturally,
Yeah.
I take your point in terms of caution, but I think that is
Mm.
primarily why Sister Cities was created, to
Yes.
reach across borders and across political issues to maintain friendly human relations. So I think if we can find things where there are options, then it would be interesting.
Yeah, if we can find out if Declan ever
Yeah,
did anything.
and I can reach out to Dr. Kish too. I'm really good friends with him.
Oh, yeah, good,
You
good.
know, our other best friend is his nephew, so.
Oh, I know his son too.
Yeah, I know Ryan. I grew up with
Very
Ryan
well.
and,
I got kicked out of his organization once.
oh, okay.
I naively thought any taxpayer can belong to that organization. But
Um,
after a year, they said, no, they don't want me as a member.
but no, I'd be happy to reach out to him.
But yeah, but
Yeah,
Gary,
yeah,
incidentally, he
yeah.
has health problems right now.
I know, yeah.
I've been trying to get together with him. I've done that in the past, but I haven't succeeded for at least 3-4 months now.
Yeah,
So I don't know
I
what he's
wouldn't,
doing.
I wouldn't count putting anything more on his plate.
No,
I know,
no.
personally. But again, if we reach back out to Hungary, and would you be any interest in being the point person kind of in
Sure,
Portsmouth
sure,
for this, just to,
I can do that, yeah.
and I did, it was funny, on driving here. They brought it up, Victor Obarn on the radio, and we're talking about,
Yes.
sort of the different, what's mirroring over there, in here. And they're kind of, we're copying them, they're copying,
Yes, there's a lot of
Um,
comparisons being.
but there are some motivations that we might not agree with,
Right.
I know, I think they're universities, they just cut everything that has anything to do with gender. And so they're going through a sort of change, I
Well, I
guess.
was involved with them a little bit because I was I'm in the American Physical Society, which is the organization of national physicists in this country. And they reached out to me knowing I had this Hungarian connection and said, we've heard that sciences are being restricted by the Orban administration. They're cutting like funding from certain departments they don't agree with the people there or the policies they had. And whether I could find out if that was actually happening and who was affected. And I reached out to Gary, who has medical connections to other doctors there. He was going every year, I think in the
I
summer,
forgot they lived
to
there for a
do
year.
pro bono medical treatment there.
Yeah.
And he gave me the name of one of his friends there, and I reached out to that guy, and oh my gosh, he was so defensive. I said, I'm just asking on behalf of this organization, what's going on? Can you tell me something? And he just said, oh yeah, this is just slander coming from foreign countries about what's going on here. Well, I said, so tell me what's going on, So I'm reaching out to you, and he kind of shut that down immediately, and Gary was pretty shocked about that too. He said, I know this guy for a long time, and he seemed so defensive about it. And so, yeah, I've heard the same stories that they're now restricting certain areas of
Yep.
society in Hungary. The worst thing that I know of is the fact that there's so much, I would say, not overt, but under the radar kind of corruption going. So many of Viktor Orban's family members have become very rich, and many of his friends, business friends, and are buying up radio stations, TV stations, communications companies, while people who don't agree with Viktor Orban are not getting licenses to buy anything or broadcast anything. So the media is being concentrated in the hands of his friends. And this has got him a lot of warnings from the European Union saying this is against European Union rules. And he also was on a tangent about sexuality issues. They had a referendum last time on the national ballot with like 3 crazy questions like, are you okay with your kindergarten teachers teaching kids about sexuality? And what do you think about gender, blah, 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 for the second graders or something like that? And everybody I talked to who saw that ballot it's a crazy ballot. What people were doing, they were saying yes and no, everything because it was so crazy. But that's another issue that they've been pushing, which again got them in trouble with the European Union. And what I can say from personal conversations with my friends there is a lot of Hungarians are pretty conservative, that's true. But the last thing they want to do is get out of the European Union. They are wedded to the Union. They want to be part of Europe, not part of Asia, Russia, or whatever. And so Orban knows this because they get so much money from the European Union. So every time he's held in violation of something, he'll back off and give them some consolation prize. And then they say, okay, if you do that, you're okay. So even though we hear all things happening, some of those things are being pushed back by the European Union, which is a good thing. And I think the comparison with our country is a little misguided because, first of all, we have 50 states, each of which has its own rules. So what Orban's doing in Hungary, because they have a parliamentary democracy and they don't elect the prime minister directly, unlike us with the president, he can issue orders for the whole country and they have to obey it. But that's not the case here with the states. Every state has its own governor and so forth. And so it's a very different situation, but there are similarities to what's being proposed by some people. Yeah.
And judging from, I don't want to speak for Steve Chinosi, but judging from his email, I don't know if the high school is up to like signing for more student exchanges right now. It just sounds like they have a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're leaving for Sant'Angelo today. They got Nichinan, and then he's talked about Morocco as well. So if we do write a letter back, I would hesitate to include, they mentioned student exchange. You know what I mean? I don't want to make any promises that.
Right, that's true, yeah.
But I do think it would be good, if you'd be willing to be the point person and then,
Sure.
see what, if we can have a dialogue or have at least some.
Doing a Zoom with him, with
Alright,
Peter,
then.
literally.
Yeah,
translate
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's actually,
As a conversation.
That's probably-
Find out what that.
that's probably better, because then we can ask questions,
Yeah,
being like,
that's a really great idea.
try to see if they do have an ulterior motivation, or if this is just a genuine.
Well, we can all be asked to propose some cooperative ideas.
Yeah, but that would be a good, so maybe propose inviting them to a Zoom, or, Do we want to
Yeah.
make that
Yeah,
motion, or?
that's a good idea.
Do you want to
We have
find
a
out
phone.
from Declan first if there's, because we should ask him before we volunteer
Yeah,
inviting
right,
this
right,
person.
No, you're right,
to his-
yeah.
But,
And if we can find out something beforehand about Gary Kish's relationship with
Yeah,
Declan, whether that went anywhere or whether
Yep.
there's something in the pipeline, we'd be good to know that.
so maybe we can do some research before our next meeting.
Yep.
In the meantime, we could respond, because this has been since what, November?
yeah,
So
November
we
27th.
Say,
Hey,
we're having some conversation, we'd like to set up a Zoom, does that make sense?
I think that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really good.
And I can reach out to Dr. Kish. Do you want me to reach out to the mayor as well and ask him where? I can do that.
Yeah,
That'd be
sure.
easy.
So,
Conversation to have.
what, did you want me to draft this letter, or do you want Peter to join the committee, or what do you want to do for the outreach? I can draft it and you can translate it. That would be helpful.
Yeah, why don't we just draft a letter for now? Because I don't want to send it before we talk to the mayor.
Okay,
That
And we could do just a simple email back. Thank you for
Yes.
for
Yeah,
contacting us.
So-
That would probably be
You'll
good.
hear from us again soon.
Yeah,
You
actually
were,
probably,
you were referring to him, but the only, if I look up Adrian Adam,
is it a woman?
I get a female artist, a photographer.
Yeah, I looked her
from-
up last time.
That's
That's the
right.
right one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is the
That's
right one,
her?
right?
Yeah.
So it's not a flip of the names or something. Her first name is Adrienne and the last name is Adam. Does that?
I think I
sound-
saw a reference to her in that city.
Yeah, me
I'd be
too.
shocked if it wasn't.
Yeah.
I think we are interpreting that right.
I was just thinking, I don't want to write, dear Mr. Mayor.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
yeah, awkward.
Just right honorable. Um. But yeah, I think writing a response letter, just saying, thank you, we're interested, we're.
So do we
Having
know? what her-
discussions in our,
Yeah,
our conference, in our committee.
We'll be in
It doesn't
touch.
Actually say who she is.
No, that's what I was
Doesn't
just
say
about. Do we know who she is?
yeah, maybe she's
why
not,
She got tapped to. reach
maybe
out.
you're right, you're right, she doesn't say she is.
No, it doesn't look like it's the mayor.
No, I was trying to look at the mayoral elections too, and
What would, her email address says @ph.solnuck. I don't know if that's is that hint a government website, you know what I mean? HUPA, I don't know what that means in Hungarian.
I don't know either.
It
I'd have
should
to
be
find that
okay.
out.
I don't know if that was like .gov.
PH at the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's another. We gotta figure out who.
Yeah, so that's even more why pinging her back and saying, thank you for reaching out to us.
Yeah.
And, you know, the Sister Cities Committee is interested in
Yeah.
following up and how did you, you know, some nice way of saying,
Yeah.
why are we hearing from?
Why are you?
According to this, she is an international relations manager.
Okay.
With the city or is it like a
It's in a
consultant?
different language, so I don't entirely know. That part's in English, the rest of it's not.
Oh, okay, so.
So I've got the mayor of Sholnik, and I'm not even gonna try this, Mihaly
Okay.
Garfi.
That was a.
That was a
What's the
my
name?
bad Hungarian.
Had to
mayor
figure
of
that out
Sholnik,
before we talk to him.
Mihaly, is that a
Hi, yeah, Michael.
I? Michael
Uh-huh.
Giorfi?
Dorfy. Yeah, that's probably his last name.
Yeah,
So,
so he
yeah.
is the mayor since last year,
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah.
so definitely not writing, but
But she
But
is
has-
international relations.
yeah, and
has the
uses this
City.
city seal, so it's kind of maybe was
Yeah,
appointed by.
Yeah, all right.
It's copy and paste.
Yeah.
All right,
Well,
I'll
we
just,
can
I'll just draft
say-
it. Thank you for your lovely
All
letter.
right,
Yeah.
Letter.
and then I'll reach out to the mayor and Dr.
Find out what
Fish.
else. Okay.
Mhm.
You seem to
great.
be with international relations in Solon?
Yes, yes, question mark, yeah.
Alrighty.
We like international relations.
You know what, I'll also reach out to my friend, the former consul in Boston.
Yeah,
See if he can give us any more information that he might have
Yeah.
some insight in.
I think the more, the more information, the better. But I do think this is kind of one of those situations where it just shows the true spirit of the sister city.
Yeah.
You know, you have
Yeah.
a country that we're both limiting our mediums of news and stuff like that. And it's, that's why it makes these little connections important. All right. Well, Peter, you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but you don't have to, but.
Oh, I can stay a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. So onto the trust. Bob, I don't know if you had any updates from the trust.
The trust is scheduled to go to the trustees on March 19th.
Okay.
I guess, I think Christine and I were gonna bring it, but I think she might have a conflict that morning, so I'll.
I can join you by Zoom, but I'll be in Illinois.
And basically, all I need to do is have in hand whatever is the last thing the committee's approved, you
Mhm.
know.
Okay.
Which I sent you. With some changes, like typos. And
Sure, so if you will just send me what to bring, I'll bring it.
I did,
All right.
yeah, sent it the other day.
I'd already lost it.
Do you want me to try to attend that meeting? Or are you good or? I don't, do you want me to try to attend that as well or?
I do not anticipate any problems. I
Yeah.
talked to Tom Watson, who's the chair of the trustees. He said that there's always some discussion of the trustees, and to expect some discussion. But it's a very simple trust, and the concept of it is very simple and tried and true formula, and I really believe that. Yeah.
Okay. I did see from Mr. Chinosi that they've already scheduled, they're starting to schedule the Nichinon students and Sunshine Cardinal students coming here again. And that was kind of our goal, is to have this trust set up for that.
So if the trustees have no problems with the trust, then it'll go directly to the city council.
Okay.
And I'll send it myself. I'll come back here.
Can I just ask a little explanation? What kind of trust is this for what purpose? Just.
Yeah, it's for a very limited purpose of allowing the this committee to have some money to spend on Sister City.
Okay.
Not anticipated to be any great amount of money
Right,
involved.
right.
It'll
Oh,
do
okay.
things
I-
like sending
I
flowers.
didn't have this, so I translated it.
Having a reception.
Okay.
It comes up when the students arrive from various places, or not just students, anybody who's visiting.
Okay.
You know, bags of,
Where does the money for the
Bling.
trust come from? How does that work?
There is no money yet.
so we can ask
it's
you to
not-
donate. So we
We
can
have
ask,
to trade out.
I'll donate.
Yeah. The idea was trying to set up, we had the students from Nichinon here.
Yeah.
And, we wanted to throw an event, throw a dinner kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And we didn't want to spend taxpayer money.
No, it's perfectly
Um,
correct, yeah.
So yeah, trying to set up a trust where people could donate and then yes, we can.
That's good.
And then and you can use it for like gifts, if we
Yeah,
had the
yeah.
mayor from Sunshine Carngelo come, or if one of our, our mayor goes to visit them or something.
Yep.
There was some people worried that we were creating a trust to fund our travels, but.
yeah, we will.
That'd be nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
in a dream world,
we
maybe.
might need that.
Yeah.
And the way the trust will work, if it's adopted in its current form, is that expenditures from the trust will be voted by this committee. Who will then report to the city manager. City manager will then report to the city council, the simple fact that the purpose for which the committee has voted to expend funds is consistent with the purposes for which the trust authorized the expenditure of funds. That's for kind of an administrative decision.
yeah.
That'll be the council. They will actually vote.
Okay. Thank you very much for the clarification.
So we would approve the expenditure, send to the council, and they would approve it.
We send
to
it to
city
the
manager.
manager. She
Send
takes
to
it to
the
council.
manager, Okay.
And I should note for the record, because I'm not sure, she may have copied everybody, but Mayor Carey had expressed the interest in being the official first donor to the trust fund.
Oh, okay, awesome. Yeah. No, yeah, we can make
I'll do
sure.
the second.
Yeah.
I tried to donate to one of the parties in Hungary for one of the elections. I got my money back. So. I think they were worried that, foreign money, not that it was a lot of money, but anything coming in from out of the country.
All right, let's trust, next, or does anyone else have anything on that, on the trust? We get the article on Portsmouth sister cities. Stephanie was nice enough to share the Granite Post. I've never read the Granite Post before. How did you come across it? You just,
Because I'm public information officer
Yeah.
in the city of Portsmouth, and I get Google comments.
okay.
And actually, having said that, Ben may have sent it to me. You may have seen that first.
No, I think I saw after you sent it and shared it.
I mean, it's pretty, fairly simple article. It's just,
Talking about.
yeah, it just lists our sister cities, gives a little description of them. Agadir, Morocco,
It's just for New Hampshire or
Portsmouth, just for
Oh, just for
Portsmouth.
Portsmouth.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, wow.
Yeah. Did you know Portsmouth has
Wow.
6 sister cities around the world?
Did you send that around a link or?
I will be happy to.
That'd be great, yeah.
But always nice to get unsolicited attention. And, yeah, makes us look good. All right, and next I had on the agenda, Christine was nice enough to share, there's an international sports diplomacy Zoom. It is being held February 25th at 2 p.m. So it's next Tuesday. But we can send that link out as well. And it looked like they were it looked like they were focused on the upcoming 2026 World Cup and the 2028 Summer Olympics. But overall, I'm definitely interested you know, learning anything more, how to use sports, in international diplomacy.
Rowing.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love sports as an international language and just a common ground. But we can send that out to the group, and if anyone wants to register and join, more than welcome.
We've been talking about our connections locally through businesses and through the chamber, but the sports dimension, I mean, Nishinan is such a pro baseball, has been school. It's pro baseball team. But didn't your initial connection, Counselor, come with New Zealand, come through soccer?
Rugby.
Rugby.
Yeah, yeah, and I've, you know, Corey McDonald is the lawyer for US Rugby. And also Seacoast Rugby happened to win the like championship, whatever, when I was over there. So it was like popped in the news and I could show them and they were like, all right, you're real. Yeah, but yeah, they live and breed rugby over there. You know, the mayor, he was like, well, if you can get rugby involved in this relationship, then you have my wife's approval. You know, he kind of said it like that. That was how to pitch it. And obviously they're All Blacks, you know, are their famous rugby team. Nelson has a local pitch, you know, but they usually don't host the big matches that the international ones. But yeah, I can reach out to Corey again, you know, just see if he's got any, you know, more connection with New Zealand or if there's anything that USA Rugby could offer as far as that relationship. But they are big sailors over there as well, like so sailing with the big fishing, rowing goes with that. Any water sports, they're really good at as well.
You know, you remind me, because of course, the America's Cup was won by New Zealand.
Yes. My
You
friend
know,
actually worked on the boat. and-
When we were watching that holiday greetings from the Lord Mayor in Portsmouth, England, Halifax is one of their sister cities, and they're doing some, I forget which one, but a major regatta
Yeah,
next year.
I
think
forgot what
it's
it was
this year.
called. Yeah.
Somewhere. But yeah, so it might be interesting to triangulate, not that we're looking for more cities, but I thought from that whole conversation that Halifax would be a really interesting parallel with Portsmouth.
Yeah, I'm sure they have a lot.
Maybe
It seemed like their connection to Portsmouth, England was the same reason almost why we have a connect, you know what I mean? You could see the
Right.
similarities in all three.
We have a Portsmouth, Halifax regatta.
Yeah.
mean, that's- Marblehead, Halifax, so we should have. Portsmouth, Halifax.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's a whole new dimension to get people interested in the sister city connections.
Yeah. So we'll send out that sports diplomacy Zoom to anyone who's interested.
Except
Awesome, thank you, Christine. Anyone else have anything on that? If you have the Sister Cities International that was last week, or February 6th, sorry. I don't know if anyone attended that or, yeah, I didn't have time, so. But it seems like this Sister Cities International, it's just nice to know that they do these Zoom events and that there is a
lot of them.
Yeah,
So
a lot of them.
I'm picking things that
Okay.
say
Because I do remember the
France ones
one,
And the Africa ones. And the
Yeah.
Japan ones and the, you
and I
know,
do remember the Africa one, we were like, okay, this isn't what we thought it was.
Right.
And it was very not personal. It was very like, you're one of thousands of people on here, you know, you're not gonna remember you,
Yeah.
you know, kind of thing. You're like, why am I wasting my time?
Did they send out, I remember seeing an email in the last couple of days about, there's a art and or writing contest for
Mhm.
high school
Mhm.
people that I
I think so.
sent to Steve and to
Okay.
Zach McLaughlin, I think.
I did see the youth citizens diplomats.
Yeah.
Was that
So
the,
That's another one,
Oh,
yeah.
I-
that-
I was gonna make sure we share that with Steve, but,
Yep,
that's
like.
sounds like a trip to DC, like June 15th to 21st. And I was gonna try to remember to mention that on Student Government Day. you know, just to see if any of those students, I don't know how far in advance you gotta sign up for that, but. Sounds
They
like,
seem
kind
to
of a
still be
commitment.
pitching it.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I'm
And
sure
they're-
there's a deadline.
They're choosing them, right? You can't just sign up there. You can nominate or
Yeah.
something is my,
Um. Looping back again to Steve's email. It's too bad we didn't know that they were leaving for Santa Crangelo today.
yeah.
yeah,
Because we could have, at least done a letter from the mayor to Mayor Sakajii.
yeah, it would have been, yeah, especially since he was here.
But knowing that they're going to Nishinon in April, we should put on our next agenda what we as a committee might want to send.
Is the mayor going? I have a note in our minutes
think
from last
so.
year that
Is
said
he-
something about, is the mayor going in
Yeah.
April of next year?
The-
So-
No, he,
The Valley at the high school who organizes it was trying to convince him to go
Oh,
because
okay.
this is the 120th anniversary and he seemed
he's good at,
amenable to the idea. that
yeah,
he
he's good at
hasn't
acting
talked
excited, not saying no, you know. Cause I was at the meeting where, you know, the mayor from Santa Crangelo, and yeah, he was like, yeah, come. You know, and they were, it reminds me, I gotta, ask the mayor about. Yeah, cause the gifts, he gave the gifts of lights, it was like a, you know, some sort of sign that would string from one building to another. And kind of go over some sort of Von Mall or some other alleyway. And then there was the slow life, slow
Oh.
food,
I think it's Slow Life.
Live
Or Slow
Slow.
City.
slow city.
They are Slow City.
And it
just
was,
slow food and walking and all that.
yeah, it was their kind of healthy lifestyle.
Off.
You know, slow down, you know, go for a walk after you eat, you know, go.
Which they do.
Yeah.
The whole
Yeah.
city is,
Which I thought was great, cause, you know, that's, yeah. Anything that encourages our community to be healthy. But I do wanna update, or just ask the mayor if there's been any updates on that or any movement. Does anyone have anything else, any new stuff? Any old business?
So I mentioned last time that we were considering a travel program and we met with that travel agent and essentially I forget, quite frankly, I forget what I shared last time, so I'm just gonna kind of cover it all. But we've identified some dates in April of 2026. That would be a 10-day trip and it's basically taking a traditional trip that they offer. This is like a Colliers travel group, if you're familiar with, or Colette Travel, sorry, familiar with them. That would start in Edinburgh, Scotland, and travel down through York and Chester and some other spots, and then eventually the trip ends in London, and they would basically extend the trip a day, so that the group, our group would travel from London down to Portsmouth, which is not a far distance, like I think just like an hour and a half or something like that by bus, and have a day and an evening and overnight in Portsmouth, and then go back to London for their traverse back to the States. So they have this all built out. They're pricing out like they have their normal package and we know what that costs, and they're pricing out what it would be to add this little Portsmouth junket onto this trip. So looks like that's moving forward, and when I have final pricing and exact dates and all the details, I'll be happy to share with this group and we'll promote. It depends if we can kind of set that up. I think I'd have to go back and look at my notes. I think as little as 15 or so. But if it's less than a full bus, they're going to try to fill that bus. So if we wanted to just be like Portsmouth or Seacoast, New Hampshire people, getting to 40 would be ideal. But if not, like you'd be with this other group of folks and then hop in a smaller bus or something like that for this trip down to Portsmouth, hopefully set up some official visits with folks in Portsmouth. And that would just be the group that wanted to do that. So we're looking at that April timing, and they pick us up here in Portsmouth, take us to the airport, and it's all pretty well included except for some spending money and things like that on the trip.
Awesome. No.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Thank you, Ben.
And I remember from your presentation last time and looking at the notes that that there's some transactional fee that the chamber was offering to split with the. trust.
Yeah, so for everyone that registers, we earn $200 per person. And my desire would be to, for the chamber to donate 100 of that, half of that, to the trust, so that it's available to this committee for our purposes, and things like that. And I believe, I just got this contract today, so I haven't really reviewed it, but there's also language in here that for every, I think it's every 20 people that sign up, we have a complimentary person to accompany the trip. Dibs.
Awesome. No, that's very exciting. Thank you, Ben, and I appreciate the generosity of the chamber.
No problem.
Um,
Sorry, it's 1 for 15. So every 15 people, 1 for. Alright.
Alrighty, does anyone else have anything else? Yeah. So I'll touch base with the mayor as far as, if he's contacted Kuriko or his daughter. And then I'll reach out to Dr. Kish as well and see if anything's happened on that. We're gonna send a letter back just saying, thank you, we'll be in touch. Yeah, yeah.
I did look her up and did some Google translating. It sounds like she works in the mayor's office.
Great.
We got some credibility there. All right, well, I entertain a motion to adjourn. All right, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all right, thank you.
Ben, is